Okay, looks like I've got some volume, so we'll get started. This is the screencast for November 15th, as I promised you that I would do. This is a pre-recorded screencast, and we're going to take a look at Chapter 13 and talk about building information systems, okay? And I do want to, let me scroll down here for a minute. And I'm not going to go the full 75 minutes for a very simple reason. I have some TED guest lectures I really do want you to go see. Look, I'm not going to give you a quiz over these, and you can read the transcripts, but I think it's worth hearing some of these, and there's some really interesting ones. I'm going to open this up for a second and show you, okay? Because these are, I think, some talks that will amplify what's in the textbook. And one of these is, what will the future jobs look like? I think is very well worth viewing. The key to growth, the race with the machines, and the rise of human computer cooperation. As these speakers are going to as they'll inform us, okay, the rise of computers, their capabilities of being programmed to make decisions, the development of artificial intelligence, downsizing computers to small, tiny chips, sensors, all of these things, okay, come into play in this issue of building information systems. But you'll note that the authors of our text, okay, chose to talk about organizational change and how do we promote that, okay? And they also talk about the systems development life cycle. How do we take an existing system that we have and reinvent it? Or how do we take it and make it sustainable? And as we've gone through this course, especially when we talk about enterprise computing, we're really talking about two things. We're talking about the internal aspects of the enterprise and the external. The internal is, how do we use management information systems? How do we link them, put them all together so that we have an enterprise computing system to achieve and to maintain operational excellence? Okay? How do we, for example, design, and I'm going to go to one of my favorite things, a vehicle, to give feedback to the driver, to give that driver the nudge to go get the oil changed, get the air in the tires looked at, warn them it's time to reservice your vehicle. Why would they do that? What would be the point? The point's simple. They want to lower the total cost of ownership for your vehicle. And they do that by promoting maintenance. And they know the typical new car purchase today, this will startle you, the typical car purchase, it becomes a 72-month, i.e. a 6-year note. That's the average. The price of a car today, okay, I can tell you, the vehicle I drive costs 4 times as much as the home my parents built in Del City. When you're financing that amount of money, if you're fortunate enough to write a check for it, that's fantastic. But if you're financing that, and ownership is a 6-year proposition, where by about year 4, the equity value of your vehicle is negligible. Anybody who talks to you about the equity value of the vehicle is really not understanding what's going on. The equity value of a car is changing radically because of the technology in the car. So our chapter 13 talks about how do we deal with how technology continues to push us for operational excellence. The second piece of this deals with how do we achieve and maintain and sustain and improve customer intimacy. My wife and I are leasing a vehicle. First time we've ever done a lease. I'd never done a lease, and I thought, okay, I'm going to lease a car, for a change. And it's a high-end value car. It was a bucket list thing. It's something I want to have. Okay, and I said, okay, I don't know that I want to buy this, but I certainly let's try a lease. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, because we'd never done it, and we just wanted to see what are our options, because we're the kinds of people that would buy a car, keep it 3 years, and get rid of it. We're the kinds of people, we buy a car, we we usually would finance a car and have one, we just write a check for it. Okay, and if you can get rid of a car every 2 or 3 years, if you can get in a cycle, it's fantastic. If you can't, then you live with payments. And most people will buy the car, then they buy the payments. And so that being said, we're talking about how do I maintain customer intimacy? And one of the pieces that automobile manufacturers do is to really, really, really push maintenance. Okay? Because they know people keep cars longer than they ever have. And they want you to come back. And if you perceive that your car was not a problem, you will probably shop with them again. So in chapter 13, the authors talk with us about building information systems, okay, and organizational change and how that's all interwoven. And I'm going to say this. There are going to be 3 factors that are going to transform every single organization that's out there. Number 1 is going to be technology. Number 2 is going to be diversity of the workplace. And number 3, it's going to be living in a global village. I'm going to take my church as an example. First Baptist Church of Moore. My wife and I are members there. My wife works there. She works for the pastor, the associate, the senior associate pastor. She does a lot of work with database. In fact, before she left for work this morning, when I got home last night, we talked about issues with their database. And as you've heard, my exploits of doing some work with it. And I thought, isn't this curious? Isn't it interesting how the technology has invaded this church? When the pastor gets up to give his sermon on Sunday morning, he has a PowerPoint. He has slides share. He'll have a film. We listen to record it. We'll see a PowerPoint show or a slide share show before church starts. Technology's invaded our worship services. We have the words not in a hymn book, but they're put up on a screen. Technology's invaded my church because in our children's ministry, we have a very elaborate process whereby we log kids in. Who brought them? We get that data. Okay, so we have a security system for our kids. Technology's invaded everywhere, and it's changing everything. You would find this interesting. One of the most conservative places, conservative organizations, is a university. Now, you think it'd be just the opposite, but it's not. You see, when people hit a certain level with their education, okay, then if they're not seriously reinventing themselves, I remember my professors in my PhD program said, Keith, your goal will be to reinvent yourself every 5 years. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you're going to be doing some publication. You'll need to stay current on that. You're going to be teaching some courses. You'll need to tweak those courses so they reflect the current knowledge in the field, etc. So the technology. Now, the diversity of the workplace. Right now, the entrepreneurs in the United States are women. Women are starting businesses at a much faster rate than men for a variety of reasons. Okay? And that means they're the economic engine. Okay? Now, I had a mother who worked. She owned her own business. She was in Avon. She sold. And she was not, a stay-at-home mom by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I grew up in a family of 5, so when I got home, I had an older brother or sister usually at home, but I wasn't a latchkey kid or anything at all like that. But my mom worked. She had her business. So did my father. He had his own businesses. So that my mom was on the cutting edge of that diversity of the workplace. Okay. And as I look around today at the student populations that I've taught, undergraduate or graduate, they're increasingly diverse and increasingly global. When I taught in the MBA, when I teach in the MBA course, I teach a course on information technology. Okay. And the past 2 or 3 times that I've taught the course, I've had more and more students who are not from the United States. In fact, who are here studying, but they're not native, they're not citizens. They're people from other countries. They're here getting their degree, and then they're going to go home. Now, I don't believe that I'm an expert. I can talk to you about experiences in terms of diversity of the workplace. Okay, I can talk to you about the globalization. I can speak about a little bit of experience about that. I worked at a university before I came here at OPU. I worked at a place called North Central University, which is an accredited institution. It's owned by a group of private investors. Our programming at the time was primarily towards doctoral people getting their PhD and their DBA, completely online. We were fully accredited. We were accredited by the same regional accreditor that accredits OBU. The same business school accreditor accredited them. But what really struck me, okay, was the kind of talent that I could bring to bear because we were online. All of our students who worked on their dissertation had to have an outside reader. And we told them specifically, okay, we have a budget built in to pay that person a handsome honorarium. So you go get the best person in that field, or the person who's done the most research on the topic you're going to research. And they will be an independent reader and external validator of your dissertation. What I began to find was many of those people wanted to become one of our regular faculty. So I had faculty from Oxford, I had from Yale, from the best institutions around the world. That would not have been possible without the technology. So we had a global workforce. I remember about 6 months before I left, just out of curiosity, I went to see, and we had people in almost every time zone around the world, which was just incredible. So in this chapter 13, Okay, there's a lot of stuff in here that's quite obvious. Okay, but this issue of maintaining customer operational excellence, okay, and maintaining and building intimacy with the customer. We build information systems to do that, but building information systems starts with the people who inhabit those systems. It has to. Now, I have the 3 TED guest lectures for today. Now, let me remind you, please, for Creative Commons fair use, download the Word document, then go over to TED, okay? Please do that. That's a way for us to show respect to them. And frankly, I couldn't afford to get these 3 people in a classroom today. I probably couldn't even, they're so busy, I probably couldn't even get them to do a screencast. They do these TED Talks because they know thousands of people. Well, some of these TED Talks, you can look and see some of these people, these talks have been viewed 1 million times. So you get that advantage. Think of this. Think of how I'm able. I remember when I started teaching quite a while ago, how I dreamed of how fantastic it would be to bring to bear some of the great lecturers out there, great experts. And so one of the things I would do, I would require my students, I would require them to go to the library, okay, and read the Harvard Business Review. And I would give them exams over the content in the latest Harvard Business Review. I wanted my students to be on the cutting edge. Well, today I can go to a link. I have one over here in the course. So technology is driving things. The diversity of the workplace is another. And then, of course, globalization. So chapter 13, it needs some context in order to fully see and understand, what it's all about. But we're going to take a stab at it, okay? Now, I think I downloaded some of the figures from chapter 13. I'm going to see if I can find them. Here they are. Okay, good. And I'm going to preview this, and first of all, okay, this figure is over there in chapter 13, and it's over on page 504. Now, on page 503, I want you to see how that virtuous cycle occurs. Okay? And how that ends up with business solutions that save time and reduce costs, get rid of ineffective or repetitive processes. Now, this figure, and as they mention, the authors mention, the most common forms of organizational change, okay, are automation and what they call rationalization. Okay, automation is pretty easy to understand. Rationalization is a different kind of critter. And this is going to come under the things of like business process redesign, which the textbook talks about. Now, I have a lot of experience in this because I worked as a consultant for a long time with the Juran Institute. And we did a lot of work with companies on business process redesign. And the idea was to standardize operating procedures, to get rid of bottlenecks, to let people make decisions where the decision points were imperative and needed to be made on the spot, all of that, okay? Now, with that comes some levels of risk. And what they talk about here is paradigm shifts Those are high risk, high return ventures. This shows the risk and reward. And it's the same for information, MIS, information systems, as is for any aspect of business. Now, this shows us a business process redesign. Okay, this is figure 13.2 from your textbook. And this shows you the customer, the clerk, the customer, the clerk, the interactions, okay, that go on. And this is the process for this is the process for purchasing a book from a physical bookstore. Okay? Then they show you, what does this look like if we take it online? And you see a much different animal. Now, as you go out to work, you're going to encounter a lot of people who are going to resist change for any one of a variety of reasons. Any one of a number of them. Okay, you're going to also find those people who really embrace change because they understand that that's the nature of business. You go into the most competitive workplace in the history of the world, and what that future holds for you, I don't know. But as you can see, we really have changed that process. When we change a business process to something far simpler than this, we change customer expectations. People today live in an instant gratification society, and they want it when they want it. Now, this takes you through, okay, that whole what we call the systems development process, and that's over there on page 509. Okay, and it starts with systems analysis, and this is what I would call a virtuous cycle. It's a good cycle when we do it well. Systems analysis, always looking at how do the systems perform. Okay, then design. Okay, and then the programming piece and the testing and conversion, and then a production and maintenance mode. In your time at OBU, okay, if you've taken classes with me, you have gone from a learning management system or platform called Moodle to a learning management system called Canvas. And I used both of those as web supported. So the courses you took with me were web supported. Now we're hybrid. That's why I'm sitting here in my office in Oklahoma City giving a screencast that you'll watch at some later time, although I'll have it posted at the regular class time. Now, I know when you guys come in and look at stuff, all of you, you don't have to focus your life around 2 o'clock on Wednesday. You can see this when you need to. So I've transformed at least the courses you take with me. So it's driving that. And I've noticed in my MBA courses, I have more and more foreign students from other countries. It's just the way it is. So we see this cycle, okay? Now, here's figure 13.5, and we'll take a look at it for just a minute. And this shows us some of these issues, okay, in terms of like a record change series, some of these maintenance kinds of things that we do, okay? And so we do testing of these systems to make sure that they're working. And as they say, building a system is 6 core activities. Now, as they talk through some of the issues, Table 13.1 is a very instructive thing. And I want to grab it here for just a second. And you can follow along in your textbook, okay? Table 13.1 is over on page 513. Walks you through design specifications. Now, the blue stuff are major areas, and then underneath them are all the details. Okay? And if you're going to design a system, then you've got to involve end users, okay? And you probably have to have them in every phase of this game. Now, I'm going to say something, okay, that I think many faculty feel, okay? And there's no big secret here or revelation. All of you know, for example, in this course, in any course I teach, they're all hybrid now. So I have a virtual Tuesday and Wednesday. Mondays and Thursdays are days I'm in physically in Shawnee. Okay? Now, that being said, I have a grade book that's associated with Canvas. I also have another grade book, and that grade book is a grade book that's that's at Jupiter grades. And there is some discussion about the grade book. Now, I use Jupiter as my official grade book because I like it much better than the grade book in Canvas. Why? Well, at first I had to ask myself, am I reacting negatively to the grade book in Canvas because it's different? Or am I reacting negatively because it doesn't fit my needs? Or it doesn't hit my gestalt, okay, like I would want it to. Do I see things? Can I do things in there? And what I've discovered is this. Now, I chose because I'm very fluent with, you know, I look, you know, I've been teaching online for almost 25 years. And so I didn't go through a lot of the training. So I said, I'm going to discover along and do a hunt and peck method. Now, to its credit, the university has done an outstanding job of providing training for people who want to use Canvas. So I just kind of did stuff on you know, and self-discovery. And what I found is that, you know, Canvas gradebook has about 95 or 99% of the capabilities of Jupiter grades. But because it's a change, there will be an issue. Well, that being said, I'm using OBU as a great example. Okay. Now, this year, all of you are the first students, undergraduate, that I know of, who have taken a course in this format, a hybrid format ever. Yeah, at least you're the first ones that ever done it at the College of Business. So you've lived through some of that change, and I know that I would have colleagues who would question all of this, and I understand that. But you know, I'm a pioneer, and so are you. So you've joined in on all that fun. So they're building information systems, okay? Those design specs become incredibly, incredibly important. Now, the authors walk us through some issues, okay? And I'm going to look at figure 13.6 here for just a second. And this shows us a process whereby people are enrolling for a course. Does this sound familiar? This is figure 13.6 out of your textbook. If you are one of my advisees, what you get from me is an email. I have a PDF of your degree works. Degree works tells you what classes you've taken, what classes are in progress, and what classes you need. I send that to you. I also send a proposed schedule based upon what's there, with a whole list of caveats about, well, if you don't follow this, blah, 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 blah. And I do it for a reason, to change that process. When I've gotten, for most of my advisees, the new ones, it's like taking a cold shower, because they've been used to having someone walk in and enroll them, hold their hand, etc. Then after about a year with me, advisees start to realize, hey, this ain't a bad idea. I can go and choose my courses. I can get that done. I don't have to try to finagle an appointment with Dr. Harmon. He's told me what he thinks I ought to take. He's got the documentation to back it up. He gives me my PIN. I know my ID. I go in and I go to my courses. If I hit a snag, I contact him. And so when I do a lot of my advising, I do it to empower you and to educate you, so you take control of your schedule and your education. It's your time, your money, your education. Well, here we see a process, okay, of courses and how that whole enrollment process works, and you're going through it right now. Okay? So, some interesting stuff in terms of systems design. Now, here's a new one, and we're going to preview this, 13.7. Okay? This is a payroll system, and it walks us through the steps that need to be done. Okay? And this shows you what we call a structure chart using what we call object-oriented programming. And when we use object-oriented programming, we organize the objects, and those objects underlying them are two things. First of all, icons that you can see or click on, or menus, and below that, the programming and the data. Okay? So no big deal there. The next thing you're going to see is an entity relationship diagram. You've seen those, and how those all feed into that table. And they talk about class and inheritance, okay, and superclasses. This is how we organize data. And if you've heard me, if you've taken data admin, we've talked about the idea of a data warehouse. This shows that type of thing, where we have all of these tables, okay, these dimension tables, and they feed into a fact table. Now, over on page 521 in your textbook, they walk you through the stair step, okay, of the typical system development life cycle, the SDLC. Then over on page 522, they show you the prototyping cycle. Now, if you've taken management science with me, or when you do, you're going to find out that that management science is really predicated upon the difference between problem solving and decision making, and the importance of building a model, a prototype. Often with business problems, or we can build a mathematical prototype. In this case, okay? When we're talking about an information system or piece of an information system, we can develop what we would call a flow diagram, or an information flow diagram. And you remember, if you took Business 1123 with me, and we talked about the pharmacy and the steps of filling a prescription, okay? Well, we talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages, outsourcing versus offshoring, request for proposal, rapid application development, okay, and component-based and web services. And you're intelligent people. You can read that far quicker than I could sit here and just talk to you about it. And I think things there are self-explanatory to the extent that I don't know that I would need to go too much further with the video, because I do want you to see that stuff, and even involving like, mobile websites and native apps and responsive web design and all of that business. Those things you can easily blow through those concepts. But to really put it into perspective, okay, for you to be thinking at a level a little bit deeper than your compatriots, I really want you to go and see these guest lectures. Now look, you can see the transcripts, okay, or you can listen to them. They're there for you. Please, again, remember, Creative Commons, simple courtesy, download the document, then go to TED. Well, I'm going to end it at this point, okay, because I have about 35 or 40 minutes worth of guest lectures for you to see. And Monday, I talked about all of these resources, and I would encourage you again to go over and take a look at them and try them. And, I'm not going to give you a test over them, but I'm going to challenge you to test yourself. You see, as I've said it before, my courses are far more difficult than you may believe, because the courses, the way I structure them, I force you to be a self-starter. I force you to not be content to just, well, here's what I learned from the textbook, but to say, okay, how do I go beyond what's in the text? How do I find the newest and better ideas? Because ultimately, that's what it's all about. Now, before I close everything off, we're going to go through some housekeeping, which we need to do. And this is, of course, the screencast, a pre-recorded screencast, as I promised you, for the 15th of November. Next week, week of the 20th, let's look at that and see what's going on. Okay. There's no class Monday, and that's flex time for you to work on your finals. And of course, there's Thanksgiving holiday next week. Thanksgiving is upon us. Just, it's incredible how fast the time is going by. Here is week 14. You have more flex time. Okay. And then we get into week 15. And you've got more flex time to work on your final exams. So I'm going to be expecting some pretty high quality responses. And you have, as you know, I tend to give you on final exams a hands-on part and then a conceptual part, okay? Now, I really believe that you're going to get a lot out of this text, the hypersocial organization, as you develop the self-developed quiz. And I think it's probably a far easier way for you to see that and read the book and master it than to just give you quizzes over it, okay? And that's going to be due at the start of the final exam period. The luxury vehicle infotainment package comparison Got the instructions there. That's due at the start of the final exam period. So after the starting next week, I will be in the mode where I'll be online. Okay, I will have an invitation. I won't be doing any lecturing. I'll just be there if you have questions or problems. I'll be in my office in Shawnee on Mondays and Thursdays. I'll be in my office in Oklahoma City on Tuesdays and Wednesdays as we've been working along. Okay, well, folks, I think I'm just going, when I do these, you know, as I go into this kind of consulting mode with your facilitation mode, I'll run you back through what's going on and try to make sure that you're understanding logistics. And you can always, of course, email me if you have a question. And, you know, I appreciate the participation I've had. It's been interesting to see. I've kind of kept track of each of the courses, and it varies by the number of people who show up at the day and time of the lecture, as opposed to those who take a look at it at other times. The advantage of you doing this as opposed to just sitting in classroom should be obvious. The first is you can replay the video. You can have, if you miss something in class, you can go back and replay the video and see it. That's, I think, the greatest. Is also, if you've got to be gone, you've got to be gone. That's the way it is. Well, folks, again, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the share now, and you've got some assignments to go, some TED Talks to take a look at, and I look forward to seeing your work when we get into finals week, and have some quizzes coming up. So stay abreast, check in regularly like you've been doing, and have a good week.